I think that this board is a critical opportunity in this time that we're in to not continue to recreate the failures of the past, but to figure out how we begin to demonstrate a new future that we can all belong to.
What's important, I think, about collection of this data is it's going to give a picture of what's going on in California. I think there's a lot of information out there, a lot of anecdotal stories, but we really need to know the truth.
I have hope because I've run into law enforcement officers who are extremely decent people. And I have hope because I don't have any choice. If you don't have hope, life isn't really worth living.
I will say to you that having grown up as a young man and having been stopped myself, having visited with our men and women in uniform on a daily basis who have to do very tough assignments, having sat down with family members of individuals who have lost their lives, this is too important not to get it right.
This legislation is really going to do a lot to take a look at what are the problems we're facing with trust in our communities, what's going on with racial identity profiling, and how we can make substantial changes in our industry, in our profession, in our communities to enhance the quality of lives of the people we serve. It's a difficult challenge, but I think this board is certainly up to the challenge.
You know, in many police departments across the country, there are these huge racial disparities in who stopped and who searched. And what we want to know here is what produces those disparities. And that seems to be the primary issue that is animating AB 953.
Strong public safety comes from good data, and if we don't have comprehensive data that includes both quantitative and qualitative data, I don't think that we have fully fulfilled our charge and done what we need to do.
And my son said, if we were with you, Mom, you wouldn't have been let go. Because my children are black. My husband is black. We shouldn't have the disparity that I am safer than my children.
I first wanted to say that there's no place for racial bias in policing, and we do not defend any officer misconduct that's been described today.
I went around the world policing Afghanistan, Bosnia, Kuwait. Here I am, a decorated Navy SEAL scared to drive on the streets that I dreamed one day to come home to.
The public comment portion of today is very, very powerful and it's very enlightening. But I wanted to thank each and every public member who came here today for this important discussion. We hear you.
Because I realize things happen and people make mistakes. You know what it did to me? I'm 50-some years old. It made me afraid of the police that I'm steady telling people that I work with are there to help them.
One of the things that was mentioned earlier today gave me concern as a peace officer in California. There was a young woman who spoke during the public comment early on this afternoon, and what resonated with me is it has changed her life for the rest of her life. And that gives me great concern that we probably have lost someone who could work within the community to assist us.
Frankly, I was born into racial profiling. First time I was stopped by the police, I was 9 years old. They told me that I fit the description of somebody who broke into a garage. I was by myself. I was terrified.
We shouldn't be having that fear of reaching those who are supposed to be there to protect us.
There are people on the board that you may not know, and you may not know the experiences that they have. I can speak for myself and tell you that the racial profiling and the experiences that you see every day in the media are experiences that, if not the majority of us have experienced, that we understand. And personally, I understand, and that it's something that I feel you.
Because these things are are true, these experiences that we have, but there's always a solution. There's always something that can be done, and we just have to be brave enough to put ourselves in those situations and scenarios.
It's important to put this board and the work that we're about to do in the context of the community that we represent, and that is a very diverse community in California. We all share the dreams and pursue the opportunities that are available to us, but we know that we have some serious problems.
I am a transgender woman and I'm an immigrant. I appreciate the opportunity to be sitting on this table. I think people like me don't get these opportunities. I believe in a better future for us. I believe that it's possible working in collaboration and getting you guys to know people like me.
You know, the work of the Racial and Identity Profiling Board is critical work during this time that we're in. It's very personal to me, considering that the only gun I've ever stared down is that of a police officer when I was 18 years old. My brother was racially profiled and beat up while he was in college, and my father was locked up with Dr. King fighting for civil rights in the Jim Crow South. My great-grandfather was killed by the Ku Klux Klan, who it was rumored in communities that they were off-duty police officers. So this conversation around racial and identity profiling is one that's about life and death. It's one that's about survival. And I think that this board is a critical opportunity in this time that we're in to not continue to recreate the failures of the past, but to figure out how we begin to demonstrate a new future that we can all belong to.
Whether you're a committee looking at training or you're looking at other policies and practices, you know, sanctions and response when there are problems, hiring and diversity, you know, whatever the different kind, right? Our task is to eliminate racial profiling. That we need to know not only whatever we can do to really understand what's making a difference, right? And what is the impact and what's changing behavior.
The idea here is that the data to be collected can be used to inform best practices and to create and evaluate trainings and to develop specific strategies to address racial disparities. And this is all in an effort to build trust, to increase transparency, to improve police-community relations.
It isn't something that isn't a new issue, but it is a different approach I think is definitely necessary.
As a law enforcement stakeholder, do you see a value in collecting the stop data? Are you better off now collecting this data than you were before?
Yes, I would say.
Why?
We're a lot better. I think as an organization, we have a better understanding of what activities our officers are engaged in. We're able to do a better assessment of their risk. We also are able to really look at the impact that they're having on the community.
Patrolling, protecting the citizenry, investigating possible crime is an honorable and valuable use of the officer's time, but the participation in the collection of this data is equally valuable.
We're talking about the first report issued by the RIPA Board, and I'm hopeful that we remain focused on improving the trust between law enforcement and the communities that it serves. And by doing that, we're looking at policies and procedures, we're looking at practices, we're looking at trainings, and we're looking at the solutions to a complex and difficult problem. We all care about public safety. We need to understand what that means and ensure that the communities being policed are safe in and of themselves.
One of the things that we talked about in this subcommittee was just trying to delve down into what each agency actually does, because while you're required as a law enforcement agency to take in a complaint and have a complaint process, we were concerned that there wasn't any uniform complaint process throughout the state of California.
The more accessible a form is, the more likely you're going to get more complaints and be able to get that anecdotal data from the community about potential issues regarding racial profiling.
A plus to being able to actually see things like the RIPA Board, the Advisory Board, the engagement, the work that they're doing with AB 953, the community involvement, and the other officers, their engagement. It's really hopeful. It restores the hope
that you have, because it's so easy to lose all semblance of hope of something being different or changing.
And I'd like to think that I'm working toward the building of a world where a mother doesn't have to worry about the loss of a loved one, because there are no decent relationships between the community in which she lives and law enforcement.
What I find amazing is the diverse background of this board and how we have come together and worked cooperatively. We may not share the same ideas, values, lives, but we have come together for the purpose of making California a better place.
This is our opportunity as Californians to really do the important work, to really be the people that we say we want to be, so that we can really build the country we want to belong to. What gives me hope is people, that people are still willing to lean forward when they have every opportunity to lean away.